everybody. You're listening to and watching the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
And I am Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
And we are your hairy, heavy homos that talk about comic books, but you don't have to be a hairy, heavy homo to listen in. How you guys doing?
Fantastic.
Good.
How are you?
I'm better. I had a shit week at work. I had a really, really busy week. Lots of hours. Our other comic book bear, Brian, is up in the New York area, and I wasn't even able to see him. I wasn't even able to carve out a little bit of time to make the city to see him. So I hope he does forgive me. But on the plus side, I am wrapping up this engagement. My last day is November 30th, and December 2nd is my last day of work, and then I don't have any work because it's a situation where you use it or lose it, and I basically have the month of December off. So,
which is nice.
it'll be very nice because Christmas
that makes it worth it.
Christmas gets so rushed, often, and this we're probably going to take like a couple trips. There are like certain towns that become Christmas.
Right.
Where they just go overboard, and we're gonna. My other half got a new car, so we can travel without the worry of that not happening. So, we are gonna do that. Like we're gonna somewhere on the East Coast, we're gonna do at least 2 of these Christmas towns.
Well, I say check out McAdenville, North Carolina. I mean, it's not terribly far from me. It's only about a 2-hour drive from Winston, but it is literally. Well, I mean, for you guys, it's about 9-hour drive. But
there's like New England, and I mean, there's some options for us.
New England, you'll be covered in snow by that point. If you don't want any snow, but you want lots of fake snow, come to McAdenville.
I love
it. He's trying to find Christmas. The fuck. Trying to take him away from it's defeating the point.
Stupid snow. It's the real stuff.
People I hate when you post that it snowed. It's like, well, it's not snowing in Arizona here. Why don't you move? It's like, I'm 55 fucking years old. Did you think I would have registered if I could deal with that? I like the change in seasons. Jesus Christ.
That's when you're just like, well, no, the reason is because I hear there's people in Arizona who like to make the joke that you just made, so I'm not going to move there.
Yeah.
So I'm staying away from that. But thanks.
Apparently, unless you live in Flagstaff gets snow. Like somebody disabused me of the notion that all of Arizona was just like this sunny desert, and they're like, no, it gets cold.
Snow now.
I've gone snow skiing in New Mexico before, so like Ruidoso, nice. There's great snow skiing up there.
Yeah.
Although speaking of snow, some people up in upstate New York are going to be having some thunder snow.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't sound fun.
We've had thunder snow like 2 or 3 times that I can remember. Yeah. It's wild because it's like a storm.
Yeah.
But it's not,
Oh, it's metal as hell.
Yeah.
Like when I thunder, like I just want to go turn on.
Yeah, it's like very Man of War. Yeah.
Well, you just have you have the driving guitar riff in the background, but the fact that it's going to be lake effect snow means it's coming down nice and slowly and softly. So you have lightning strikes, and then
So for this show, it's going to be a little strange because I'm going to skedaddle for a little while because these gentlemen are going to be talking about Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, which I'm not seeing until next Tuesday. So I don't want to be spoiled. I don't pay close attention to the internet with the movies. I just, to not spoil myself, I don't. But there was one spoiler that I wish I didn't. It stinks that I mean, it doesn't matter. It's not a big spoil. It's not like Rosebud was a sled. But it's it's still.
Or a certain somebody shows up at the end after Black Adam is over.
I just wish I didn't know it going in. That's all. But it's minor. But I assume you 2 gentlemen enjoyed it and have stuff to say about it. So
yeah,
that'll be.
We have some stuff to say.
Yeah.
I don't care about any of the characters. No, I don't.
There's only one character that we all care about.
No, I fucking love it.
Yeah.
Caleb.
Yeah.
I get it now. I
Yeah.
get it.
100%.
All right. Well, before we do that, we've got Geek Gets and we've got a little bit of news. So, what do you guys want to tackle first?
Let's go Geek Gets.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
All
sounds
right.
fun.
Well, Steve, since you were very happy that you actually had Gets this week, why don't you go first? Show us what you got.
Well, as you know, well, I mean, Bill and I tend to be riding that cusp of the massive collectible provider that is McDonald's Happy Meals, and I've been very much enjoying their Black Panther Wakanda Forever Happy Meal toys. I've only gotten 4, but every time I've gotten something different. So, because a lot of times, I'll go and get like the same crappy thing, or get freaking Sonic Forever a year after it, or Sonic something or other a year after it's been on. So, but
You're still seeing Scoob toys every so
Scoob, like, look, I got another Scoob, like, nah. But I've got several of them. So I've got Namora. I've got Atuma.
Nice.
Which
not
we'll talk about Atuma a little bit later.
It's a goita.
Yeah, a goita.
It's a goita.
I got a Shuri, just as Shuri. I'm kind of confused about what she's doing here. She's either shucking clams or
It's Jazzercise.
I don't know. Yeah, she's Jazzercise. Wah, 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 wah. And then of course the pièce de résistance, which is the last one that I got. I got a name. So the cool thing about I don't know if it's cool. It's interesting. The interesting thing about the Atlantean toys, or I can never remember it, is that their weapons actually change color in cold water. So they become more of like a cleary blue rather than the purple they are. But yeah, those were my little geekettes for $1.98 each, or $1.89 each plus tax.
Totally forgot they were doing that, and I actually went to a McDonald's like yesterday to get a small fry. And
there you go.
Hurrah.
You could have gotten an actual Happy Meal.
Yeah,
I've probably
only
same
gotten
price.
the one toy because I'm on a diet.
That's me. That's why I haven't gone.
Yeah. So if I wasn't, I probably would have gotten like a meal here or there.
Cool.
But there's a lot of figures.
Little wings on his ankles.
Is this like another promotion where there's like 18 figures or so?
I think there's a total of 9.
Oh, that's not too bad. Some of those
it's not
were like they could barely fit in the case.
Right.
Yeah.
When they had so many.
Yeah, and they all have the same thing that they've been doing for a couple of years now with all the Marvel toys, where they kind of can interconnect. They have like a little interlocking base.
Oh, that's cool.
But and they all kind of interlocked together. But I think I'm running out of space on the lineup of all the Marvel figures that I have. So I think the Eternals kind of ruined it, because you get like 10 of them and they're just lined up like this. But yeah, they're pretty cool. They're fun and cheap. So.
All right, cool. Well, over to Caleb. How about you?
So my geek get, I'm gonna break convention a little bit. Usually our geek gets are for not books, but I got a cool shipment of books in that I've been excited about. So just real quick, a very hefty, hearty tome of Bottomless Belly Button, which I'm excited to read. It's published by Fantagraphics, and then it was on sale, so they had a really good sale at cheapgraphicnovels.com or something like that, and so I grabbed a couple of things. I got the 3rd or 4th library edition of Black Hammer, which is already on my shelf, so I don't have it over here with me, but I have Matt Kent and Wilfredo Toro's Bang, because it's Matt Kent and Wilfredo Toro. I paid like $8 for this. Like, I ain't mad at that. Yeah. And then I got Corey Levine, Ian Bertram, and Britt McKee's Bowery Boys. So also, didn't pay a whole lot for this. It's hardcover. So that's my geek gifts. Just more book that I'm throwing on this pile of stuff that I haven't read yet. I am taking the week after Christmas and before New Year's just completely off. So my goal is to just do a whole bunch of reading and knock out like 3 omnibuy. So that's my goal. It's not gonna happen, but it's a goal.
Hey, goals are good to have.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Okay, for my gets, I got one of the spiritual totems of the Comic Book Bear podcast in Funko form. Yes, I got Hercules.
Hercules.
Yeah. So he joins the pop collection, and I actually saw like people were like bitching that it's the cod piece Hercules and it's not the skirt Hercules. I was like
Yeah, shut
that
up.
never registered with me. Yeah,
I
shut up.
like that outfit. Like that outfit's really cool.
Yeah,
I can't wait to see it.
yeah.
Like
I mean, my
in
only yeah, I mean, I the only times I've had like issue with character design was when he was without a beard
yeah,
and
Oh,
when he had the man bun. Um, because I just think that locked it too much in time to a particular period. So
yeah.
yeah,
uh,
I can
eh,
see that.
it's I got some DVDs in the mail. I got the final season of Supergirl, but that's over already filed away. I got
Archived.
the Batman, so I can watch this again. I get all the DC stuff. You all know that.
Yeah.
And then
Shocking.
from the Criterion sale, I got Arsenic and Old Lace.
Huh.
Now this is I had to get it because it's a Grant film, but this is actually one of my least favorite Grant
Yeah.
films. And I think it's interesting. Before we started with the show, we were talking about stage plays and musicals, um, and I think there's a particular energy to the stage show of
Hmm.
Arsenic and Old Lace that the film just doesn't capture, or whether it could be captured and Frank Capra was the wrong director for it. I'm not exactly sure. And Grant himself said on more than one occasion that it should have been Bob Hope in the role of Mortimer. And it's interesting to see even actors back then when it was the Hollywood system even saying stuff like that, you know.
Hmm.
But it's
Interesting.
Criterion and there's all these awesome bonus features. And then I guess my other geek get is I did get I got a Black Adam T-shirt here. There you go. Uh,
Nice.
yeah, so that's my gets.
Ah.
Very cool. So what's happening in the news?
Well, we had a couple things that were kind of cool. The first thing is a particular sales milestone for a particular number one that I think a particular co-host really enjoys and is excited about,
You have
which
to
would
redo
be
redo that as a Jewish man. You know, a particular thing that one of the co-hosts would like. And
Yeah.
if
but
you're gonna
anyway.
come at me, understand I'm not Jewish, but I'm Jewish. I probably went to more bar mitzvahs than I went to first communion. So yeah.
But yes, and what book is it? What
What
book is
book
it?
is it?
It's the new Gargoyles book from Dynamite, which
Nice.
actually, and so I like this news, and you guys have the numbers in front of you. I don't, but the numbers are really good, which makes me incredibly happy because when I heard that it was Dynamite, I was a little bit worried, right?
Yeah.
Because
Mm-hmm.
Just
Dynamite,
over 179,000.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's insane. Like for a Gargoyles book, like, and I know that there's a lot of there are a lot of variant covers, which is going to affect that a little bit. Like that's
Yeah.
the industry, and that's Dynamite. Dynamite is famous for doing that, but even still, that's a lot of book. So that bodes very well. I'm very excited. Um, I cannot wait to get my hands on this book.
Nice.
That's pretty cool. When is it? When is it actually released? Do you know
I
the
think we're
exact
two
date on
months
that?
out. I think we're two
December
So
months
like
7th.
out.
just January,
It says December 7th.
December 7th. So we're only 1 month out. Ooh.
I guess he's going to the
Eh,
calendar.
He's no, he's just gonna go run over to wait in line in his store. He'll just be sitting there for the next 4 weeks, just sort of like, okay, I just want to be first in line.
Oh, it's earlier than I thought. Okay.
It's not out yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Ran to the store real quick. No, my so for those of you who are listening to the podcast, to step off the screen a little bit. My niece is a freshman in college, and she's been down studying algebra with my husband. So they're getting their college algebra on in the living room, and she was saying goodbye, so I had to go say
Oh,
bye to her.
okay.
So
Aw.
yeah, so really cool
Goodbye,
moment where I
Caleb's
got to see
niece.
my
You
husband and my
got up
niece.
like you were Steve Kornacki going to the big board.
So let's turn around here, and we're gonna look at this.
Got new numbers coming in. Yep.
I hate election season, but I love watching Steve Kornacki do his thing. It is one of the true joys of having a 24. Like,
have you noticed the bulge in his pants?
yeah. Oh, and he plays for our team too. I don't know if you guys.
Oh
know
yeah.
that.
Oh no. Yeah. No. He's
Yeah.
a homo
Like,
thing. Yeah.
yeah.
What?
But yeah, take a look. There's sometimes.
Oh no, trust me.
Where the
I've got
slacks are a little tight. And,
Would love to see his charts. Would love to.
His charts.
His charts.
You have the biggest charts, Mr. Kanaki.
Okay, Steve. So I think there's another piece of news that you wanted to talk about.
There is, and I just saw this today, and obviously, we know that there's been stuff in the works when it comes to the Sony Spider-Man universe of properties that they have the rights to from Marvel. And today they just announced officially the TV series of Silk, which is going to be coming out, I believe, early 2023. Angela Kang is the showrunner there with with a good group of writers and directors that they have working with it. And it is going to be airing. This is the part that I thought was kind of interesting. It's airing on Epix, or what will now be called MGM Plus, to start, and then Amazon Prime internationally. So I'm not sure if they're going to actually put it on Amazon Prime in the US as well.
I got the impression from the article that it was that Amazon Prime in here was going to be.
Yeah. However, they do have the kind of like the plug-in subscription for
I mean,
Epix
there may be a
/
few
MGM Plus.
days delay. I mean, because I think there are some things that are along those lines, like particularly Paramount Plus, where it'll get on Paramount Plus pretty quickly, but not at least until 2 weeks after, before it first airs on CBS. So, there's some things like that. But I also think because no one subscribes to Epix, that I don't think
there's some great stuff.
Yeah.
But there's some wonderful stuff that they've had on it. But
Slow burn. Oh yeah, no, they've had some really good stuff. But I don't think that they would want to have a premiere that's as muted as that. Maybe.
Yeah. Especially if they're promoting a relatively recent Spider property. The character of Silk has only been around since I think 2016. 2016, 2015 maybe. So relatively recent, but Sony's been trying to promote a lot of their stuff. So I would hope that they would be a little bit bigger, especially domestically with it, because I think internationally she's probably not something that international audiences would know right away. So depending on how they promote it, obviously, and push it as part of the Spider-Verse of shows and movies. But yeah, I just thought that was pretty cool. And Angela Kang, of course, if you know her from The Walking Dead, I mean, she's been showrunner on that for I think 3 or 4 seasons, and before that was one of the EPs for several years. So
Silk's first appearance was 2014.
2014. Okay, so it is a little bit older than I thought.
In
Amazing
Spider-Man number 4. Am I right?
This says number 1, but it may have just been a cameo. But it was Dan Slott and Humberto Ramos. So I didn't know Humberto Ramos helped create the character. I didn't realize that, and I love Ramos. Which I'm not a Spider-Man mark though, so I didn't read that. But
it's been interesting that I've been getting, and I know number 2 is out, but Spider-Man 1, that was the first Spider-Man book I've gotten in ages, and I got everything that Slott did. I think he stayed on a little too long, but. That free comic book day that had the Nick Spencer stuff, that was like, okay, no. No, I lied though. I did get the first 6 issues of the Zeb Wells Romita Jr. I lied.
That's the newest one, right? Where he went back to being a broke college kid.
That's ASM. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then Spider-Man is another monthly book that's going to work in tandem with that.
So, I read a Spider-Man book this week. I'm not going to talk about it.
Okay.
I've heard of a Spider-Man's.
It stunk. You know?
I haven't bought. I can tell you right now, I have not bought a Spider-Man book since McFarlane's Spider-Man series.
Jesus.
So
Some stuff's gone on since then.
Yeah.
yeah, for the past 30 some odd years, for sure.
It was
But yeah,
actually JMS got me back in.
yeah.
But it wasn't contemporaneously. It was a little bit after he started, so I have most of that run in graphic novels, and then
I know Superior Spider-Man brought a lot of people back who had kind of gotten a little bit.
yeah, I mean it was there were things that were good about it, but like I said, he overstayed his welcome.
Yeah.
Um,
In fact, you're not alone there with JMS. John Westhoff has joined us. Me too with JMS on Spider-Man. So
and there's some of the best Spider-Man moments ever are in JMS's run, including one confrontation with the Kingpin
Mhm.
during Back is Black that is like it's in my top five Spider-Man moments and of anything, where
cool.
he basically tells the Kingpin how the Kingpin's gonna die if he ever sends Hitman out
Yes.
after.
Yeah. No, I remember that moment.
Oh, that's so awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. John says, yeah, some great stuff, some
Too.
misses, but I love it.
Yeah,
So
some misses too. Some of the Ezekiel stuff was a little out there. Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't
and-
have misses though? I mean,
Hey,
oh, exactly.
Yeah. I mean,
Especially if you're going to be in a
Yeah.
running for a while. James Figueredo has joined us. Good evening, Himso Bears.
Series, 3 extended runs where it was like a Rockford Files and there was no jump to shark moment for me.
Oh,
I would say
Sandman.
4. So I would say Sandman. I would say Starman. I would say Alan Moore Supreme, and I would say the if you just consider the original run, the Wolfman and Paris New Teen Titans.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't think it ever fell off the mark, really.
Yeah. James actually here Zeb Wells' current ASM run is quite enjoyable. Plus, they did get Ramita Jr. back. Yep, yeah. And then also John, Caleb never misses. Gotta throw in that, yeah. No, I could agree with that. I haven't read a lot of the Alan Moore Supreme.
The best Superman stories that aren't.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Left, right, and center. But it was interesting because I think my biggest involvement or my biggest connection with the Alan Moore Supreme was reading Supreme Blue Rose, which was absolutely a gorgeous, wonderful.
And they do share DNA.
Yeah.
As does when they continued the Supreme numbering with Eric Larson. That's actually a little better than I think people remember. There was some interesting stuff that went on where they kind of tie in the extreme I'm supreme, Liefeld into the
Liefeld era. Yeah.
And I actually like that run a lot. Yeah, I actually like that run a lot.
Yeah. Actually, I think I was going through my old comics, my when I was a little kid buying comics, and I think I have like 4 copies of Supreme #1 for some reason that I know I did not purchase. The original Liefeld one. I think they were just giving them away towards the end.
Yeah, some of those books, like I know I've got multiple copies of Turok #1, and I never used to have to do that. Whether it was like in the middle of a pack of 3 comics or something. Like I know.
Well, it's
just
like whenever
getting them.
I have this theory that it's impossible to buy a small collection. Like if you're buying more than a short box, you can't buy a small collection without finding at least one copy of Johnson Stroman's Tribe.
Oh no!
#1.
Well,
yes, that's another one I have like 3 copies of.
Yeah. I don't think that there was a #2. I've never seen #2 in the wild.
There was a #2. It was on an imprint called Axis.
No, I know it exists. I've never seen it in the wild. But
I've never seen it either.
Yeah, that first cover, the black one with the gold embossing, the Johnson and the Stroman.
Yeah,
beautiful cover.
It's in every small collection I've ever bought. I have like 9 copies, and I don't know why.
Oh yeah.
And Stormwatch #1.
Yep.
Stormwatch,
Lots of those, yeah.
I do not have a copy of Storm March number 1 because I stopped buying comics right before it came out. I got my several copies of Wildcats and Cyberforce and a whole mess of Shadowhawks and random Youngbloods.
I still don't have
Lots of Brigade number 2. Lots of Brigade number 2.
Still don't have my copy of Volume 2, number 3 though, which is the first Midnighter Apollo. So I have a lead on one. I have a lead on one.
How pricey is it now?
It's not. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's up there. I mean, plus I'm trying not to I could go on eBay and find a copy, I'm sure, but my comic shop owner has got a copy of it that he's talking about selling me. So
okay,
ooh.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Tribe number 2, James Figueredo has Tribe number 2. He's the one who bought it. There you go.
Now was it
got a copy? Awesome Larry Stroman art. Don't ask him about the story.
I was going to ask if it was still Stroman on the art, saying if it was still Johnson and Stroman, but I figured it was.
Awesome. Yeah. There's a lot of interesting treasure and or anti-treasure that's in those by a small collection that was started around the Image.
Yeah,
the
Always.
Image startup.
Prophet number 1.
Yep.
So.
Supreme number 1 for that matter.
Yeah.
Yep. Supreme number 1, which
time back, absolutely.
I think I do have the Prophet number 1 too. Yeah. All the special foil covers, the prisms, the hard covers. Those were great.
Yeah.
So much fun.
The cards inside.
Card stock. Yeah.
Yep.
Cards and the bags and the coupons and rip these out and destroy your copies of this book, kids.
But
so you can send it in for number 0.
Yeah. Or 0.
Or number half.
Yeah.
Ash can. Everybody wants an ash can.
Okay, well, we are approaching the 10 o'clock mark for the ESC.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's high time you guys started talking about a movie. So I will take my leave for a little bit. You have the cell phone to just ping me as you're wrapping up. And I'm going to enjoy a little bit of the Packers-Titans game. So.
Well, enjoy. We'll see you soon.
See you soon.
And he's off.
Well, and he's off. Good, finally. No. Oh, so Caleb, we went and saw a movie, not together, unfortunately, because we are about 900 miles apart. But
yeah,
we did see it about the same time.
We did.
So see a movie with you.
Yeah, we need to make that happen. It's got to. So I actually saw it open night. My husband was a rock star. Actually, he's Roger, I'm the comic nerd in the family. There's no secret about that. But he loves the movies. He loves so he is like Johnny on the spot when it comes to making sure we have opening night tickets, and he's ready. And I really I love that about it. He gets excited. So and he doesn't know who half the characters are half the time. So he's seen them for and I don't say that for any other reason than it's brand new to him. He's just seeing everything unfolding. He's introduced to a lot of these folks. Right off the bat. So he got us opening night tickets. It was really cool. So I got to eat a hot dog, which is I love going to the theater and getting a hot dog, throw some mustard and relish on it and just dive in, because I don't let myself have those things very often. So
no, movie theater hot dogs, which are better than I would say a 7-Eleven or a convenience store sort of rotating gas station hot dog.
Yeah.
Which has been there since, possibly the previous administration. So my husband was apparently psychically linked with your husband, because I took a quick break to walk the dogs from work on opening night, and I came downstairs and walked past the room where he was sitting, and he was like, okay, so would you rather see the 7 o'clock or the 8 o'clock? And was just setting up the tickets right then. Unfortunately, the show that had the most open seats was the 7 o'clock 3D showing, which I do not recommend for anything. Not because 3D is terrible, but because
it is though.
The projection of 3D tends to be terrible. And this is a very dark movie in terms of a lot of nighttime battles, lots of underwater scenes. You don't want that extra shade to be drawn with the 3D projection, because it always does. The brightness is always turned down on those, which was very unfortunate. I think I kind of missed some of the usual bright Marvel touches that sometimes happen, even in a more serious, sort of darker toned movie like this. But should we kind of dive into like what this one is about?
Yeah, sure. You are the resident plot hype man, so why don't you go ahead and just lay it all out for us? And I guess we should probably say the title of what we saw as well.
The title, yes, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, not Black Panther 2, just Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Obviously the second movie, so there you go. It's like Thor: The Dark World. It's not Thor 2, it's Thor: The Dark World.
So mad at you right now.
Well, I mean, I guess tonally, there's a lot of similarities between those two sequels. I do have to say this, and quality is very different, but
okay.
Pretty similar.
Let's establish that there's a major quality difference.
There's a very big quality difference between those two sequels. But so really quickly, because I don't want to spoil too much, we are going to be spoiling something, so just keep in mind if you haven't seen the movie, the first part of what we're going to talk about, not as many spoilers, but we will spoil going forward. So in this one, it is the sequel to the Black Panther film that came out in 2018, 2019, I believe at this point. And unfortunately, the film does open with a very sad circumstance. T'Challa, the Black Panther, is deceased, or is, becomes no more by the opening part of the film. And this is obviously a big response, and this happened and was put in the film because of the passing of Chadwick Boseman. So they did decide to incorporate the passing of the actor who bore the mantle of Black Panther with the actual character of Black Panther, T'Challa, in the film. And it's a very interesting sort of, a great way to open a movie if you really want to punch the audience in the face to start that, hey, the main character of this franchise is dead. Sorry, that was something that they really talked about a lot in the promotion for this film, so no surprises there. But obviously the emotional impact of this has really challenged the other characters. Queen Ramonda, who is now, the sovereign of Wakanda, and of course T'Challa's sister Shuri, who blames herself for not being able to save his life. And there's a lot of grief that's presented, but also there's a sort of a secondary thing going on where the American government, as well as other governments, are trying to get vibranium for themselves. Wakanda is the only place on the earth where it can supposedly be found, and the Wakandans, although generous, are not going to be sharing something that will definitely be used for weapons for the outside world, because they never trusted the outside world for a very good reason. And one of those reasons, of course, is the U.S. has found another source of vibranium deep in the ocean in the Atlantic. And in that, strangely, they are attacked by someone who is not the Wakandans and has not been revealed up to this point. Really no survivors. It's a real big tragedy. And it's discovered, in, talking with the Wakandans, that Namor, the leader of a people who are not the Atlanteans, but take their heritage from the from the sort of the Guatemalan area, from that Yucatan area of Mexico and South America, North America, but that part of Mexican North America, are also another group of people who have vibranium and have made it part of their culture and their society, and have given the Wakandans an ultimatum to either join them or sit back and watch as the rest of the world burns, in revenge for trying to expose these people who have been remained hidden for 500 years. This also involves Riri, also known as Ironheart, in the comics, who is the genius who created a vibranium detector that was stolen by the CIA and is being used for this. So she becomes essentially a pawn between Wakanda and Namor's people to, whoever controls Riri basically control the technology behind finding vibranium. This leads to a lot of conflict. There's, a very awesome sort of, flooding battle with whales and people blowing stuff up. It's really wonderful. It sets up really this massive conflict between the two peoples, between Wakanda and, Namor's people. And kind of sets up something very interesting, I think, for the future of the MCU. And the balance of power on Earth, which, used to be Wakanda at the top of the heap, really, and everybody else. But now there's another power that possibly could be greater than them. So it's very interesting. There's a lot of really great character moments. Nakia comes back and has a lot to do in the sequel. And Okoye, of course, has some really wonderful action situation, like action sequences. It's very, very good. Angela Bassett gets a chance to really shine as Ramunda very strongly, as does Mabuto in a couple spots, which is kind of cool. Basic plot. There's lots of action. Things happen above water, underwater. Pretty cool. Lots of emotional impact. Yeah. What did you think of it, Caleb?
So, number one, I love the movie. Right, like I constantly deal with recency bias in good films on whether or not this is by far probably my second favorite Marvel film of the last batch. Right, and I'm including Spider-Man: No Way Home in that. Like Spider-Man: No Way Home is to me is the best thing that and I realize that's a Sony film too, but it's the best thing that they've done so far. This to me is right up there, right underneath it. There are parts of this that I actually enjoyed more than the first film. Obviously, I think it's a different film because you have a different main focus, you have a different focal character. I like. They could just hand Ryan Coogler the keys to the kingdom. In my opinion, he is such a dynamic, good filmmaker. He has a deep understanding with how to weave very, very important cultural debates. They're not even he's not answering questions. He's having a debate with his films, and so he finds a way to have this very intellectual conversation in his movies while still maintaining the fun tentpole aspects of it. I thought it was truly brilliant, and I kind of figured they were going to do this. I thought it was brilliant the way that he made art imitate life with this, and he brought out this movie is really it is a story about grief, and it is a story about generational trauma. Right, like and Black Panther, the first Black Panther movie was a lot of that too, and so he takes those same things, but he was able to pull out some very particular performances from his actors in this film because it was truly they were grieving while they made this movie in a number of different ways, right? So all of them were grieving because they were actually friends, with with the Black Panther.
Chadwick, Chadwick
they had a deep relationship with Chadwick Boseman, and they loved that man. And they had been in, there are several movies where some of these characters interact with Chadwick Boseman, like the outside of this world. So like there's a long working relationship and a history there. All of them were actually grieving in real time. And so they did something really great. You mentioned it. And number one, it had me crying within the first 3 minutes of this film. And I'm not joking. Like the first 3 minutes, I had tears in a Marvel movie, but they did it by saying, hey, there is and again, we said we were going to spoil some stuff, but they didn't show him dying. They made art imitate life in the way that Chadwick Boseman in real life didn't announce that he was sick, and he died with dignity. He took it like he died in his own way. He left his life in the way that he wanted to. In the film, T'Challa does something very similar. They don't announce that he's sick. He battles a disease. They don't say what it is. It alludes that it's cancer, which is what killed Chadwick Boseman. But he did it in a way that he didn't tell anybody about it. He didn't announce it to the Wakandans. He kept working. He kept grinding. He kept being the statesman and the pioneer and the tip of the spear for his people up until he passed away. Right? He didn't even tell Shuri, which is part of what her giant. Once she did find out, she launched into scientist mode to cure what very well may be incurable. So
Yeah.
we don't know, and she has that leftover baggage about her. We all, if you've ever lost somebody, right, and all of us have to one degree or another, you always have that feeling, I wish I could have done something. What could I have done? I didn't do enough.
Yeah.
And you're talking about a hyper intelligent person, somebody with a genius level mentality who has a very specific understanding of medicine and physics and chemistry, who has a lab that is literally beyond what we can imagine in reality. And she jumped into work and still couldn't do it. So she carries this baggage, this trauma, the loss of her brother, the loss of her sovereign. On some level, it's both a familial heartbreak, but also a nationalist heartbreak, because she feels not only did she fail her brother, she failed her sovereign, she failed her country, so she failed her people. And she takes all of this into this very um just wrenched deliverance of this performance. You can tell that this character has the weight of the world on her shoulder. Also, I thought it was very interesting. A large part of this film, they are alluding to basically inoculation. And if you know any drama around Letitia Wright, I thought that was a little funny. But no, and then apparently I learned today that Winston Duke,
Yeah.
he just
Please,
lost
M'Baku, not Mobutu. M'Baku. I
yeah,
don't know why I constantly do that. M'Baku.
Winston Duke's mother passed away very not too long ago too. So he's dealing with the loss of his friend. He's dealing with the loss of his mother. And I thought he shined in this film. He's one of number one, I think he's hot. Number two, he's oh my God, that just but his comic timing was great. He really came out in this film in a way that he didn't. He helped carry the film. I thought it was wonderful.
Yeah.
They did a great job. And that's all in making the movie. I think what makes it good, but just in the writing of the movie, Ryan Coogler did a great job about showing, okay, the superpowers as we know them, all of the superpowers are in some sense, they are either the colonizers that broke Africa, or they are descendants of those people, and I include the United States in that. I mean, the British did the colonization. They colonized our country too. But in a completely different way. By the time the United States got up and running, we're talking about a way different, the slave trade being the most important part of that, but not the colonization that had already been kind of done. The Dutch and the French were also big into that too. And so they take and they present them in the very first, they go to the United Nations, and that's the people who are trying to get their hands on the vibranium, right? And it's just the Dutch, the French, and the the British and the white people. And they flat out lay it on the table. They're like, you're not getting this. You're done. You're vulnerable now for the first time ever. It is a world in which the superpowers as we know them are vulnerable, and they're vulnerable against people that they thought they had oppressed into subjugation on a national level, or thought they had eradicated. And that's where Namor comes in. These are two sides of the same coin. They are incredibly different, but they are very much in line and in tune with each other in how they, in their history. Namor is 500 years old in this movie.
Yeah, because he's they don't specifically designate the. I mean, obviously Talokan, is named, but they're essentially a Mayan, a Mayan group of people,
right? Was it?
How they start during the the initial sort of conquistador era of European colonization, Spanish. colonization of that part of North America. And it is very, like, specific, very much so. You know, an interesting contrast to what happened to Africa and, you know, the people of Africa is what's happening to the people of the Americas at the time of, you know, this colonization. And, you know, his peoples have been pushed as far as they could go towards the sea. Essentially, it's like, sorry, your land is not your land anymore. You know, we're taking all the land, and, you know, metaphorically and physically, they take the choice by, you know, having the vibraniums, you know,
enriched plant,
enriched
their
plants, their own
their
version
own,
of, like, the purple heart, or the purple,
heart-shaped herb,
heart-shaped, yeah,
herb.
herb, yeah. These plants, you know, basically give them, you know, transform the entire people. So instead of just one person taking the herb and becoming the Black Panther to protect and lead their people, everybody takes it, and they all, you know, evolve and transform into sea, you know, ocean breathing superhumans. All of them are superhuman. They all have superhuman strength. Some of the women have the ability of sirens to just hypnotize people and make them kill themselves. You know, everybody's, like, they heal. They, you know, they're almost impossible to kill. Like, all of these superhuman features that Black Panther himself has, or themselves have, now is an entire race of people. And Namor himself is, you know, unborn at the time that his mother takes the herb. Like, oh yeah. The mother takes of the
birth
there you go.
defects?
Yeah, and yeah, these birth defects, though, are practical immortality, the ability to fly from, like, really cute little ankle wings, and smoking hotness, apparently, are those birth defects. But, you know, basically his people, he's been, you know, leading them very well underwater. They have this entire enormous society that's, you know, advanced in a different way. Instead of using technology, they use the world around them, and they use the, you know, the elements that have been presented to them underwater, and just as part of their people. Like, they created an entire artificial sun underwater that's not made through hyper technology. It's just, you know, the fact that they understand natural materials, in very big contrast to what Wakanda has done with their ingenuity and with vibranium, is that they've gone technologically super advanced, whereas this group has kind of eschewed technology, you know, in that model, and instead have really, you know, fashioned an entire society around what people can do and what, you know, nature can provide.
Almost harnessed chemistry in a way.
Yes. Yes.
You know,
natural chemistry through.
Yeah, where the Wakandans, like you said, chemistry. They were more a physics-based society. But they're not. I mean, they're not Atlanteans. I want to call them Atlanteans just because I'm a fan of this.
Telocon, I think, or Teleconian.
Teleconians. But so Namor's, Namor's people, they want to. They've harnessed chemistry in a way that lets them exist. And I think it's interesting that Namor's the only one who has lived that long. So all the rest of them, from what we see, they have more of a human lifespan. But there was this really great nod to the fact that he was the first mutant, and there was something about the fact that it affected him while in the womb with a mortal woman, that made him immortal, and, you know, gave rise to this idea of the feathered serpent. Right, this very, very Mayan godlike figure, which you know, Quetzalcoatl is probably the best one I know, not being an expert on Aztec or Mayan lore. But you know, when the conquistadors first landed there, the Mayans and the Aztecs and the indigenous people there, they thought it was Quetzalcoatl, right? They because he showed up on his horse with all these things, and they let him in. That's part of the problem. but it gave rise to this entire lore. And as he just lived centuries, he continued to remain isolated. Like they are, under the sea, but in a way that spread them across the globe. They were a global superpower beneath our very feet, and we didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I say we,
Essentially,
yeah, who could have at any moment jumped up and we learned very quickly that even the best defenses, being the
Mm-hmm.
Wakandian defenses, they slip right underneath them. They are not
Yeah.
inhibited by water. Like if water flows, they goes. Like, like they are just.
Well, and a lot of people were complaining, because there are always nitpickers when it comes to any kind of Marvel movie, but they're like, but Wakanda's landlocked. Like, there's no way it's so far in the continent. There's no way that they could bring whole whales, with whatever there. And it's like, there's a freaking river. Where do
Yeah.
rivers go? Rivers go to the ocean. So you could just come from the ocean up the river.
Have you met salmon?
You see how fast they swim.
Have you seen salmon? Do you not understand how salmon works?
You know how this works? And those are like little fishies. Well, bigger fishies. But yeah, I mean there's just a lot there. And of course he tells a story about how he gets his name, which in this version in the MCU, it's no amor, namor, I have no love for these colonizers. And he's very, very open about hating the entire surface world.
And that's what I love, because I know we want to get we want to get Bill back in here soon, but that's what I loved about this, because okay, Namor, I've got a picture of Namor up on my wall right up there. I don't know if you can see it. Like
he looks very similar to this, clearly.
Yeah, like Namor's my dude, right? Like he's my top 3 Marvel characters. If you don't know, and we've had this conversation before. Hulk, Hulk is my guy, but it's also Namor and Scarlet Witch. Like those are my top 3.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that's the 3 in Marvel that are my crew. So for me to see finally to see Namor on the screen in this was a big moment. And I had a lot of people saying, well, what do you think about the changes that they made? Like, and some of that I felt like there was people online going like, don't you think it's weird that he's native and he's a brown person? Like there was some of that, but I'm just like, I'm like, if you have to ask me that question, we're not friends. Because I'll let you know real quick. But the other part of that was, no, they changed a lot of stuff, but what they didn't change was his character. They did not change who he was. This is the same person that flooded New York, right? Like 100%. This person gives 0 fucks about you unless you were in Atlantis or Tenochtitlan. Like his dedication and his allegiance is to his people and his people alone. And yes, he is hot-headed. He is bullheaded, making bad decisions, and he is distracted by his own ego a lot in both the comics and his movie. They get it, but at the end of the day, his allegiance is to his people and his people alone, and he will murder you, flat out. Murder. He is not this man is not your hero. He will murder entire cities and civilizations if it means that his folks live, right? Like that's it. And they, at the end of the day, just want to be left alone. But I think they now realize, like the Wakandans realize, that the age of being left alone is over. It's out the window. And so his response to that is not to do what T'Challa did. It's not to do what T'Challa's dad did, right? Like T'Challa's dad, like kept the Iron Curtain up. T'Challa said, no, what we're going to do is we're going to integrate into society, and we're going to use our natural resources to lift ourselves up as a global superpower and put ourselves on top of the food chain while maintaining our own sovereignty and and identity. Namor's going to flood the world.
Yeah,
like he's not going to make himself part of the civilization. His is going to be the only civilization. They're just done.
Yeah, and I think and I did want to kind of mention a couple things, because there were some things about this movie that I didn't enjoy so much.
Okay.
Really quickly, I did enjoy the fact that when you talk about how language is used in this movie, there are a lot of subtitles in this movie. So if you're not a fan of reading, sorry, I recommend it. Definitely. There's a lot of French in Haiti, so we're talking we're looking at languages in predominantly African societies. So there's French, there's you have some Swahili, and you have some Zulu and Xhosa and all that. But also you have the Mayan language that that Namor and Talokan are all speaking, which is really great. There's not a lot. I mean, there's plenty of English, but it's very interesting how well they use English to kind of
Right.
flesh out this world. The one downside I did have with this, and people are going to hate me for this, Riri. Um, I wanted her character to have more to do and to have more agency, and she has none. There are huge parts of this movie where she's just kind of like sitting off in the backside, waiting for somebody to come and engage her, because there's not a lot that she has to do. There's not a lot of motivation for her. It's like, why Iron Man? Why is this like what are we doing with this? And you're kind of like, well, I know that they kind of had to force her engagement in this, but at the same time, I'm like, they could have brought her in some other way. I don't know. But that was the real downside for me. Everything else, I really enjoyed this, and this is definitely up there with Winter Soldier, Civil War, some of the more serious of the Marvel properties. So I like it.
So I didn't dislike Riri, and I like Riri as a character in general. I think that it would have worked better if they had made her younger. Like that to me. So I get what you're saying. I think for me it worked in a way maybe it didn't for you, is because she was actually a pawn, and this was all for like this was not her world. She was an MIT student that she thought she had like did a project and somebody took it. She didn't realize the extent that they had abused it. And all of a sudden she gets thrown into a world where everybody is trying to kill her, like debating on whether or not she gets to live because of what she knows. And it's so yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you at all. She had no agency. She had no. I think we're going to see her become her in a different movie. What I did
she has her own series. I mean, she has her own series coming up, and I think maybe that was the thing. They didn't want to reveal too much. They didn't want to put too much with her. But I was kind of disappointed with this, because her storyline would have made a movie on its own. Right. If the focus was on her, but it wasn't. So she was just some some additional person that they were dragging around with them, or not dragging around with them, and then she would pop up again. It's like, okay, now we got to give you something to do. But I love that this is a very female-led film. All of the main action characters, for the most part, were all women, including a reveal of our favorite villain to be, played by Julie Louis-Dreyfus. Herself is a villain in this, and a very strong, powerful character, even though she doesn't have a lot of screen time. But there are very few men in this, other than Namor. So you have Namor, you have Atuma, who I was hoping was going to be a big villain reveal. Absolutely nothing. It was just kind of like some big dude.
We're gonna see that. I mean, we're gonna see that later, though.
I'm sure.
And
so,
but Namora, it's the same. Namora played a huge role in this. Namor's mother played a huge role. Like she was a very big motivation point in this.
Angela Bassett,
Martin Freeman, Oh, Angela Bassett. Oh my God, like
great.
Oh, just just so statuesque. When I see Angela Bassett, it's cliched for a gay man, but I think of that scene from To Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar, when they're looking at the picture of Julie Newmar and they're like, describe her without using the word statuesque. And I'm just like, that's Angela Bassett. Like it is, she just is. She is so regal. But you actually get to see her in a different way in this film too, where she's defending when she's defending Shuri on the beach. And like I was like, oh, like no, even the queen gets to be a mama bear, right?
Well, not only there were parts where she was the mama bear, and in charge, but also when she took off her crown and she didn't have a wig and it was just her hair, gray, white, really, and just she felt, you saw her look defeated in that moment, and just emotionally defeated in that moment. That was amazing. Anyway, we have Bill, who is just fighting to get back in here. We definitely need to bring him in. So, quick wrap up. I really enjoyed it. Really very few downsides, other than just sort of like I want more for Riri to do. And Caleb?
I loved it, but I'm a mark, right? So like that's but even for a mark, this is an excellent film. Excellent film.
And Namor, of course. And M'Baku. Namor and M'Baku. Yeah, just tag team. Anyway, Let's bring Bill back on.
And yeah, Eiffel Tower, me in the middle. Yes. So anyway, there's no reason to go see this film. It's not
absolutely
any good.
no reason. It's just. Hey, Bill, welcome back.
I come back in on Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
The thing is, I haven't seen the film. Time. I don't even have to think of who you're talking about. It's immediate.
Yeah. James here mentioned here, Caleb, I love you so much for that Wong Fu reference. Yes. And Bill's like, what are you talking about?
Well, for James, I'll bring something to Wong Fu up front next time we're here, just for him.
Awesome.
I have something.
We'll hold you to that.
Yeah.
What about me?
What about you? What about you?
Love that movie. I can quote that movie.
Well, you will see it also in 2 weeks. Yeah.
Yes. There we go.
All right. So we want to talk about some books. So yeah, let's great time. Can't wait to hear, Bill, what you think about the film. And we'll have to have a short recap and get your thoughts on it later.
Yeah. My biggest problem with the first Black Panther film, and I don't even know if I would characterize it as a problem, but I thought something that I didn't think worked as it could have been a little more better defined is I thought that his supporting cast was so strong that there was a lot of times that T'Challa felt like a bystander in his own film. And this, you kind of don't have that this time around. So it'll be interesting to see what my reaction is, but I am definitely looking forward to it.
It's funny you should mention that because there was one thing we did not talk about when talking about this Black Panther film. Black Panther.
Yeah.
So after seeing it, you will see why, and I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but Black Panther's really not in this movie much. So,
all right. Well, so we're about to talk about some new books, and then when we go to that, we always start off with Steve. Steve, what is something you're reading that you're digging?
Well, I think one of the books that I'm going to be talking about because you also read the same book, or at least have it. And that is,
I would say have it. I don't
have it.
I haven't read it yet. I've read the first. I've read the first one with
Ty. Yeah. So this is Green Lantern Alliance, and this is the sequel. This is the follow-up book to Ming Lee's Green Lantern Legacy, which exposed or showed us a whole new Green Lantern character that we were never aware of before in the universe. But here's Green Lantern that's been there this whole time, practically as a friend and mentor to several, of the DC big leaguers. And in this book, it's really, really great. There's some really wonderful flashbacks to Tai Pham's grandmother, who was the Green Lantern legacy that Tai picked up the mantle for in Green Lantern Legacy. In this time around, Tai is he's just a struggling high school student with his really good friends, and just trying to be a superhero, getting trained by other Green Lanterns to be a better hero. Because unlike other Green Lanterns, he basically got the ring just because he was his grandmother's grandson. And just her, her emotions and her, her strength willed the ring to him. And so he, of course, kind of reluctant, kind of unsure about himself. But, now he's proven himself in the first book, but now he really needs to prove that he's got what it takes to be a good Green Lantern. Also, in the course of this book, he runs into the current Kid Flash, who is Iris, Barry's daughter, or Irie, one of the twins, Irie and Jay. Jay actually is barely in this book, but she actually figures pretty prominently as becoming a friend to him in Coast City. And again, there's the plot here is that there is a series of arson attacks that are going on throughout the city that he and Kid Flash are trying to help save a lot of those victims and try and figure out how to stop. And somehow his big nemesis, the so-called Golden Boy, who's the head of this massive corporation, and also happens to be a Yellow Lantern, how he's somehow involved. In fact, he could actually potentially be another victim of this arson ring. And all through this, he gets to interact with a lot of really cool Green Lanterns, Chip and John, Kilowog, and even Kyle Rayner shows up because, of course, Ty is a budding comic artist. But it's really great, and it's a really fun book for younger readers. It is a DC Kids graphic novel, so it is good for pretty much all ages. But it's also really fun, and it's really great seeing sort of the flashbacks with his grandmother interacting with Superman, with the Flash, and other figures like Sinestro. So it's pretty cool. But I highly recommend it. And if you haven't read Green Lantern Legacy, definitely pick it up. But you do not have to have read it to enjoy this book.
That's good. That's good to hear. But I would say pick up Green Lantern Legacy because it's awesome.
It is awesome. You should pick it up.
It's good to know that you don't necessarily have to have that vantage point to enjoy this. So I will get to this fairly soon. Just haven't.
It's a pretty quick read because it's only about 100, maybe 120 pages.
Yeah,
if that.
And can you also give a few words about the awesome art by Andy Tong?
Oh my god! Oh my god! It's so. I mean, just some random page. It's just a very, a very fluid style. There's a touch of manga influence in there as well, but it also, he just has this way of, just really framing a page, playing around with his panels, doing a lot of splash pages that are not, ostentatious, and I just love it. There's just something very cool and new about it, and
very
exciting.
Very young.
Yes,
there's a very young feel to it.
Yeah. Definitely not house style.
He would be a great Teen Titans artist. He would be great on that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep. Cool. I will get to it at some point soon. All right, heading over to Caleb. Caleb, tell us about something you're reading that you're digging.
I need to do a better job about reading some of these DC all ages books. I haven't really tapped into them yet. As much as y'all gush about them, I really need to.
Well, there was one I didn't gush about.
Well, right, no, that's true. Yeah, no, that's the
Lois Lane and the Friendship Challenge will forever just be a
that was like legendary.
Is that what gave birth to La Bamba, or was that the Fortnite book?
Oh,
I think it was Fortnite. It was Fortnite.
Yeah, Fortnite was.
But Lois Lane continued the tradition.
Oh no, it did. It cemented it as a thing.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I also read a graphic novel this week, and I know at times I can be prone to hyperbole, but this really is one of the best books that I've read this year. And I say that truly, it's one of the. I cannot talk about how good this book was, and really drive home without folks reading it. So the book is called Queen of Snails. It's a graphic memoir written by Maureen Burdock. Maureen is now she she's an adult. She lives here in the States. Her and her wife have a great life. She's a cartoonist. She's written a couple different things, but this is a look back not only on her story but also her familial history and how she got here. And the book really does play the metaphor. It's called Queen of Snails. When you think of a snail, it is a creature that carries. It's a creature that carries its home on its back, right? It's also a creature that it's fascinating because if you know anything about snails and their etymology, I'm going to get nerdy in biology here for a second. The slime that they secrete, it's incredibly tough. It's basically Teflon. It obviously different structure, but snails can crawl across the edge of a razor blade, and as long as their body is secreting whatever that slime is, they don't get cut. It is an incredibly strong mixture. So it's a story. Basically, her story, what she's saying with that metaphor, is that this is a story about a girl who takes her home with her, who moves around so much that that is her who she is. That has to be able to crawl across the sharpest edges without getting cut. Like she has to defend herself constantly. And that's an incredible metaphor for her life because her life is very tumultuous. She was literally born on the day that the Berlin Wall came down. That so 1987, like the day that they finally crashed. It was 85,
89.
89. Okay, so yeah, so she was born on the day the wall came down, and it's it kicks off her life, and it really does a good job about showing this weird uh, place that that place in Europe has been in, because not only is she stuck in this mix between Russian and European political dynamics. It goes into the fact that just a mere 40 years before that, they were just crawling out of the Blitzkrieg. Like this area has been just tossed through the meat grinder for so long, and that has affected the way that people live, and it's affected their personality, and just this constant anxiety that seems to be pervasive with that culture. And it's true of both her and her mother. So she's born to a mother who is a hypo Christian. The answer to everything is Jesus, and she's kind of bought into this new world. And her father is very much not that. They end up getting separated, and her mother takes her to live with family in America, and specifically in the U.S. And so they rip her out of her world. She was already kind of a not a sheltered young girl, but she was kind of an isolated young girl. Had been through, had several experiences that she talks about in the book that kind of shape her reality and shape her mistrust of people. And so all of a sudden she's taken to a place where she has to learn a new language, and that no one speaks like her. That the kids aren't very great. She starts to learn about who her parents were in the 70s and the 60s, and what some of the things about her grandmother, that who now lives in the U.S. that are very hard for her, especially in modern sensibilities, to talk about. Just put it bluntly, her grandmother is somebody who oftentimes may wax poetic about the golden years, and we think of that. Yeah, lots of people did that. Her grandma's golden years were in Nazi Germany, right? So, like, waxing about the golden years being Nazi Germany, not exactly high marks for Nana, but it's something that she has to contend with. So the book is really about how she becomes this kind of I guess latchkey kid, where she just bounces around. She doesn't have a close relationship with her mother. There's always been this separation between them. She doesn't have the long familial tie to her grandparents, because at the end of the day, she's like, okay, grandma's kind of a bad person. Maybe not, doesn't mean to be, but she is. She has no ties to home. At a very young age, she just tells her mom, I'm going to go live with these people over here. And she does. And her mom's okay with it. She just lets her go. At another time, she says she comes back when things don't exactly work out, and she's dealing with some trauma that happens. Um, I don't want to ruin it because I want folks to read this book, but it's a story about womanhood. It's a story about the trauma of being a woman that has lots of bad things happen to her in her life and has to overcome it. It's a story about somebody who comes out as queer in the mix of what that means to somebody who has a very helter-skelter family dynamic in the first place. So like, it's very deep. It's a little. Have you ever read, Stephen? This might be a question for you. Have you ever read Bernhard Schlink's The Reader?
Yeah, I have. It's been a while, but yeah,
Yeah,
I've read
so
that.
it's basically and I was talking to our friends over on the EOC podcast the other day, and I was telling them it's basically a love child of Bernhard Schlink's The Reader and Emil Ferris's My Favorite Thing is Monsters.
Hmm.
Uh, she has a style that reminds me a lot of Emil Ferris's style. She's not
Yeah.
as fluidic as Farrell, as far because Emil Ferris will change it up, every other page, and give you these things that look like they're creepy and eerie comic covers, and then she'll go into just the cartooning. But another good example. But she has this very much the same sensibility that Emil Ferris does when she's getting into her more cartoony things. I thought it was just a wonderful, very honest telling of this woman's life, of this woman's history. Um, uh, she deals with a number of things, including a love of. It reminded me of Alison Bechdel's last book, where she talks about, her love of exercising and how that was balanced with an eating disorder. So like there's a lot here. There's a lot to unpack. It would be impossible for me to. I'd have to read it 3 or 4 more times to really
Mm.
unpack everything that needs to be dug into it. But um, fascinating self reflection and I just truly enjoyed it in some way, even though it is focused on Germany. It's focused on Germany through the last 80 years. It still feels like a very American story.
Mhm.
And maybe that is because the American story is a story of immigration. Um, so I just, I thought it was great. And it's a story that will hang with you. So, again, published by Fantagraphics. Just go grab it. Queen of Snails. Unless I just read something that absolutely blows me away in the next like month, this is going to absolutely be in my top 10 list of the year. Just
Cool.
there's good. Good's not the right word. Like it's on a different level. It really is, on a completely different level.
Yeah, it's one of those when you read it, it kind of thing. So I'm sure.
Yeah.
I need
No.
to. I really do need to pick that up. In fact, I think when you had recommended it to me, I think I put that on my uh, queer book club's reading list suggestions for next year. So we're going to be voting on those, and I'll try and convince my fellow readers that this might be one that we should definitely
You
put in there.
you guys will all remember this. You remember when like you were reading "I Never Promised You a Rose Garden" and you were like,
Uh
"Holy
huh.
shit! Like this,
Yeah,
what
this
am I
fucking book.
reading?"
This
Yeah,
fucking book's amazing. Yeah, that.
like that. Like
Yeah.
you get to that point very early on in this book. I'm just like, God, like how have I not? How am I just hearing about this? Like, and again, it's brand new, but like I thought there would have been way more hype about this book. When I think about some of the
Mm.
other Fantagraphics books that get hyped up and that end up just falling flat, and then I read this and I'm just like, I mean, like look at this, like just
Mhm.
yeah, so good. So go check it out. Queen of Snails, Maureen Burdock. Um, gonna be tough to beat.
Cool.
Okay, cool. I probably should have gone second just because of the link with DC and also with Legacy. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay, good, good. You were like looking at me like, mm. All right. So the first book I want to talk about, I know I'm the DC guy, but this was not in my DCBS box because it's in the next one, and I couldn't wait. So I ended up getting the all red variant cover, which is very nice, of the new
That's
Golden
what it. That's
Age.
what it looks like. That's what I'm getting. It's coming in my box next month.
Nice, yeah. So this is the all red.
Gorgeous.
And for people who don't know, the new Golden Age is written by Jeff Johns with a slew of artists, including Jerry Ordway, doing some amazing work on the Justice Society characters. Scott Hanna, Steve Lieber, Diego Orlategu, Ted
Mm.
Knox, Scott Collins, Victor Bogdanovich, Brandon Peterson, Gary Frank, a whole bunch of artists in here. And this is post Flashpoint Beyond. If you were reading Flashpoint Beyond, then you would know that one of the developments is that there are 13 characters related to the Golden Age that were taken out of the timeline and are now back in. And as we go, this is almost like kind of like this really should have been a Flashpoint cover because really Batman has very little to do with this, and Rip Hunter doesn't have much to do with this either. So a little bit of a bait and switch there. Um, but we see the Justice Society make their return effectively to the DC universe, but we see them return at different times. We see them in the
Mm.
1940s. We see them in the 1950s. We see them in the 1970s. We see them at a time when the Legion of Superheroes is actually operating. We see a little bit in the near future, being like 15, 20 years, where we meet Helena Wayne. So the new Huntress is actually Helena Wayne. And we have uh, it's mostly centered on Helena and Doctor Fate. Some of the very different, um, the different people that operate as Doctor Fate. Both Caleb, who's the current Doctor Fate, Kent, who was the prior Doctor Fate, and there's also a Doctor Fate that's apparent in the future time as well. And it goes back and forth in time, but it still manages to tell us like a cohesive narrative, which I thought was really impressive. Um, it's just a one shot. It's just a teaser, but you can see where the direction is going. This another work that this ties into. There's two prior works that this really ties into. I already mentioned Flashpoint Beyond, but that's almost tangential. Uh, Flashpoint Beyond felt more like setup. If you remember the DC Rebirth one shot, there's actually threads that were not followed up since then in here, and also Doomsday Clock.
Yep.
So we have some operations there. One of the coolest things is I mentioned previously the 13 that have been missing from the timeline. We have in the back Who's Who entries
Yes.
for all of them. Now, some of them are characters we've seen before. This is the Golden Age Aquaman. It's not Arthur Curry. It's not his origin. He actually never did have an origin story in the Golden Age. So no one really knows who this guy is. So that's one of the characters that actually pre-existed. Another one, if you remember, at the very end of the New Frontier, there was that version of John Henry Irons, so he has made a return appearance. But there's also new characters. We have the Boom, who is Jay Garrick's daughter.
Mm.
We have, and this is the character I'm like, Vladimir Sokov, the Red Lantern, but the Red
That I
Lantern
was really excited about.
is Soviet. And there's
Yeah.
also here Mr. Miracle, Thaddeus Brown, who was the first person to be Mr. Miracle. So I'm excited for what this is going to bring. It's not the kind of comic that would make you a comic book fan for life. I think you need, it's not a very good first comic. I think you need to know some of these threads that tie this stuff together. But if you've been waiting for the JSA to return, like I have, in a format that is familiar. Let's put it that way. Um, uh, this gave me everything I wanted,
Good.
and it's also just a really well written story. Like I said, there's mysteries, and in the unraveling of the mystery, and that they do that through a device of the back and forth bouncing in time. I thought this held together much better than it should have. Um, and just the who's who entries. I mean, I just love these. And then the big mysterious one, which is all redacted, Legionnaire.
Yeah.
Like, how cool is that? This is just
Well,
cool, you know.
I just like how the Who's Who files were done in the exact same
Yeah,
manner as they were in like the 80s and the 90s, the early
yeah,
90s, like that same, even the newsprint style,
yeah,
because they'd actually posted some of these just as teasers.
yeah,
I think Bleeding Cool
yeah.
Newsarama had some of them.
I mean, that's one of the coolest things is you can see the four
Yeah.
color dots.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. I
so
was like, it's
that,
that's true to that's really playing true to form and
but
bring back some nostalgia
if you
there.
love if you love John's run on JSA, you're not exactly getting the return of that, but you're getting something definitely within the spirit. And again, it's
Mm.
an unraveling story. And given the DC history projects that's coming up, the JSA ongoing series, whatever, wherever we're at the end of Dark Crisis, something is brewing, which is going to be a new narrative for a timeline. I mean, that's pretty clear. So,
And says
look at
James,
that.
"Okay, Bill, you've convinced me. Just bought this one digitally." Well, awesome, James.
But it holds together really well for, uh, given that there's a lot of pitfalls that it could have fallen into where it didn't gel. So I was very glad to see that. So, all
Cool.
right,
I'm
Steve.
excited. I'm excited to read my copy
Okay,
whenever
cool.
it shows up.
Yeah. Well, this is the kind of thing where I was like, yeah, it's coming in the next box. I can't wait. I've gotta know. And I knew I couldn't wait for the new Justice Society of America series. So I'm with the DCBS box, I'm getting a variant, but my LCS, I actually have. He was like, "Wow, I'm actually pulling something for you other than Saga." Like, yes. So I will be getting the standard copies through that. So
Well, and also I think it's Stargirl: The Lost Children series also kind of ties
yeah,
into
that's
it,
it.
right?
I'm not going as crazy on that one.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
but again, Stargirl is involved with the Lost Children.
Yeah.
Some of the characters
Sidekicks.
are sidekicks or scions,
Yeah.
sidekicks and scions. The game um, that Stargirl will be involved in an investigation and finding out what happened to them.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
I'm excited. I'm excited.
All right.
Ah,
Steve, tell us about another book that you're enjoying. I know we're at the 11 o'clock mark for EST, but
yeah.
we'll,
I'll
we still have enough time to get through a second book. Just so
yeah. I'll try to be quick with this
probably
one.
just not elaborate on it as much as we did with our first.
Yeah. This one, so this was kind of like one of those things where I just picked up because I saw it and I was like, I'll grab it. I think the second issue is out on this as of this week, and that is Lovecraft Unknown Kadath. And what this is, it's basically just a retelling or possibly reimagining of the H.P. Lovecraft story, The Unknown Kadath, which is one of his weirdest, which is saying a lot, but also one of the more fantastical books, stories that he's famous for. And it concerns a dreamer named Randolph Carter, who has the ability to basically pass into the dreamlands and traverse them as if he were a waking person. And the dreamlands themselves are all sorts of fantasy, all sorts of strangeness. You've got cities and heroes and villains and bizarre creatures and bizarre civilizations and ruins and temples and gods that exist in this realm that go well beyond the waking world to other universes, other realms, other planets, all sorts of things. And the writer in this one is Florentino Flores, with art by Guillermo Sana and Jacques Salomon. And the art reminds me at times of like Little Nemo in Slumberland. Just that same sort of, lots of detail, but just that twist of fantasy and interesting. In fact, the entire first page itself could have been right out of Little Nemo in Slumberland. Just beautiful little introduction to this character of Randolph Carter as a child. But Randolph, in traversing through this world, it's almost like of course he's just a traveler. We're thrown into this. Not a lot of explanations given to you, like who these creatures are, where this world is, where these cities are, what's going on here. And it's just a great bizarre journey that's being reinterpreted for a 21st century audience. But I think it was first written in 1919 or 1920. It's a very old sort of fantasy horror story, where Randolph Carter is trying to make his way to the unknown Kadath so that he can actually, see this beautiful city that exists in his dreams that he knows is there. And it's the realm of the earthen gods. The earthen gods don't want him, though, to see this. And so the protectors of the earthen gods, the other gods, are trying to find a way to stop him from seeing this beautiful. Very interesting. Very cool interpretation. And of course, at the end of every issue, they have segments from the original story that concern the subject of each issue. So you actually get to see the original text in addition to the reinterpreted comic text. And there are differences, obviously. But I think it's a beautiful way of doing this. Really great way of interpreting it. It's put out by Ablaze.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think is this what they kind of did with the Sumerian,
Yeah, the exact same thing. So they took the
the
original
Conan books
stories.
that they put out.
Yeah, they took the original stories, had them plotted, and just the whole point. I mean, was really the art. But they put the text in the back of the book, so you could read these old Howard
Perfect.
stories and almost delivered just like they had been written. Just beautiful art.
Oh yeah, the one thing I do like is that they did change a few things. So they the language is if you've ever read Lovecraft, he really likes to extend a phrase. But this just really the art and everything just really drains it down to its essence and makes it a good, fluid, and fascinating comic story. And of course, the art is great. It's in terms just fantastical and gory. Well, not even gory at this point, but fantastical and horrific and just really cool. So I recommend it. If you haven't read any Lovecraft, you might not know what you're in for, but if you have read Lovecraft, this is a great version of his stories. In fact, one of his more famous stories. So.
Okay, over to Caleb. Caleb, tell us about something else you're reading that you're digging.
I will. So if you had to ask me in the past 5 years who the best satire writer is in comics or just in general, I would have probably said Mark Russell. I think I've changed my mind on that because I don't think Mark Russell is a satirist as much as he is just he does like the same thing that George Carlin and Lenny Bruce did. He's not writing satire. He's telling you exactly what's happening in the world without pretense and bullshit. And so his latest book is out. And yeah, he's not doing satire. He's just literally telling us what's happened. And we're so used to shit that we think it's satire. Anyway, his latest book, Billionaire Island, it's actually the second, it's called Cult of Dogs, but it's the second chapter to this, the second volume. So I don't really know what they call them at Ahoy, but it's Mark Russell's latest bit on that, and it's wonderful art by Steve Pugh. Chris Chuckery did the colors on that. Rob Steen did the letters. So this takes place obviously after the first Billionaire Island. If you guys remember, some folks were trapped on the island. They escaped. Shenanigans happened. The island sank. All the billionaires are gone. Terrible things deserve to happen to those people. This book picks up right after that, and it's the main character, at least in volume or in the first issue of this. It should be familiar. Shelley Bly, and she was one of the folks who, if I remember right, was trapped on that island, and she's a reporter. And so, since she's been out and the Billionaire Island sank and it took along with it the billionaire economy, quote unquote, left a power vacuum in the world. And once the billionaire economy collapsed, well, they were the ones who were propping up all the superpowers in the world and the so-called governments. And so things like the United States went away, and they broke up in these little feudal systems, and warlords and the militias took over certain segments. And I mean, there's still some cool spots where they've cordoned it off. Gated neighborhoods are still a thing. It's just gated neighborhoods with guards. The people with the most guns and resources have the money, or have the power now. And so some of the cities have walled themselves off as the seas have risen, but it's really turned to shit. It's not all great. It's gone downhill very, very quickly. But our girl is writing a story on that, and it ties into who is now the richest man in the world. And if you remember, the richest mammal in the world was the person who was actually in charge of Billionaire Island was a dog. They just decided, hey, we'll let this dog have all the money, and he'll eat out of a certain kibble bowl, and he'll decide how we do things. But the dog is missing, and the person who ran AgroPack, which was the biggest company in the world, put out food to actually sterilized everybody that ate it. Terrible thing. Yeah. But he's dead. So all of his money now goes to his next of kin, which happens to be his dad, who is just a little old feeble guy that just wears a shawl and is being taken care of by a nefarious henchman that seems to be a butler, but not that, like, who's just kind of making all the wrong decisions and is just manipulating the guy into doing all the terrible things. So our girl lands, gets in the drone, it lands in the helipad, goes to talk to him. But while she's there, all hell breaks loose. The walls come down. The people are just they're in mob mentality, right? Like they're not like
Mm.
they're just destroying things for the sense of destroying. They're tearing everything down, and so it comes to pass that I don't know if we're going to see her again. I mean, we might. She's not dead, but but it does. She's not going to be in a good place. But as the elder gentleman, the father who's now the richest man in the world, is being misled or led by his butler, this person who's in charge of, and the guy, he's a shit piece of shit because he's a 40-year-old with a ponytail, like just to drive it home. That's like Steve Pugh's like, no, let me just drive this home. They come to the conclusion that
He's an
that
'80s villain. Yeah.
yeah, like, he's very much just it's just the best thing ever. But they come to the conclusion that they need to go find the dog because they need to consolidate all the power, and they're going to do that. They've hired a you know possibly Jesse Ventura esque type person to go lead a team to go find the sunken island and see where if they can get the dog back. Because if they do that, they'll just have all the power. And the problem with the economy is that all the people with money were bad people. And if you just give all the money to the good person, it'll all be better. We just need one trillionaire and not a bunch of billionaires. Um, it's fantastic. Mark Russell, like Steve Pugh, does his thing. It's wonderful cartooning. He's a great partner to Mark Russell. He drives home the ridiculousness. Mark Russell is writing satire. He is the best satirist writing today that I know of, that I'm aware of. This art embellishes that. It really does. Like just the inflection points that he puts on at people's faces. It is excellent. I go check it out if you enjoy Billionaire Island or you like modern political commentary. This is the comic you want to be reading. Ahoy also, not to because you talked about the back matter in yours. Ahoy also does some pretty cool stuff in all of its book. There's a story in the back of this book called "The Big Cheese" by A. Rubin. There's also I think there's an interview back there, and there's another story called "The Tattoo Lives" by Carrie Harris. So really cool format. You get a lot in this book, and it's about a puppy. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Um,
can't just like puppies.
yeah, I do have that coming to me. I also have the My Bad
Yeah.
from him.
Oh,
Also has a second season. Uh, I really like the only thing that I've read of his that didn't connect was Not All Robots. Um,
which I
Yeah, I
really
loved
enjoyed.
it.
Not all
I know a lot of
robots.
people it just
Yeah.
did not connect with me, but everything. I mean, Dead Box I loved. Second Coming, both of those series I
Oh
absolutely
yeah.
love.
Deadbox
You
didn't
know,
do it for me,
yeah.
but look,
I mean,
look at
right
the
now,
mobile Wi-Fi guy. Look at him. Just look at him,
It's just
and right now, he does have that Superman Space Age.
which is
That
mhm.
did,
amazing.
yeah.
Oh, it's
So
yeah,
speaking of Allred, also, but it's coming. Um, yeah, so I will be sampling that, and naturally, for many of the reasons you cite,
yeah.
because I do think he really doesn't have a peer at this point.
No,
Mm-mm.
at
Right
all.
now,
Not
Like
really.
no.
he's operating in his own kind of idiom. So, all right. I don't only read just DC. I seriously, there's some
No,
other books I read.
you
I
also read DC Black Label.
Yeah.
And
So
DC Kids.
every once in a while, there's a comic that will come out where the title will just draw me in, and that was this case. And this is from Dark Horse. This is Dead Mall. Dead Mall
Ooh.
#1. I love the concept of the dead mall. I wish we had some by us. Uh, you know,
No, you
you,
don't. You don't.
I guess not, but I would, kind of love to see what it's like. Just a little. I probably wouldn't go in, but I probably would peek. If
I've
that's
got a story after you're done about a dead
okay.
mall that I visited. So yeah,
Okay. All right. Well,
sad.
yeah. So the dead mall in this situation is the Penn Mills Galleria. Man, if you're gonna invent a name, that's it. Um, uh, the gallery is about to be demolished, and five teens sneak into the mall to take one last look around before it's gone. Now, while the mall's been closed for years, it's been far from abandoned. Many homeless people have used this for shelter. Teens and drug users have, normally come in, but it is a vacant mall, and it's I really liked that they didn't waste any time. Um, you just go right into the story. And what you have in the malls is a narrator, and the narrator's commenting on the teens and what they're like. There is an LGBT couple among the five, and just you get the vibe from the time from some of the some of the language and inflections that there are that the person that is narrating this is not of the present day. Um, and again, I should mention that the writer is Adam Cesari, and this is his first comic work. But apparently, he's had a pretty well received. Let me just get the name of it. Pretty well received horror young adults novel called Clown in a Cornfield. Um, and I gotta say, like, I would never have said that this was his first comic work because
Mm.
he just seems to have cadence and the particular type of storytelling related to this type of graphic literature down. The artist is David Stahl. The art is a little bit inconsistent. Um, there's one particular character that looks different, I think it does work because there is a kind of rawness to the teens that are involved in. What I really came away with in terms of enjoying this is the last page potentially changes everything. And I love storylines like that. The narrator may not be the person that's terrorizing these teens within this mall. And I want to see why, if it's just economic situations that this became a dead mall, or if there is something else behind it. It's going to be a 4-issue series, and for 4 issues, I'm in. It was, nothing that's going to be talked about in 20 years, but uh, in terms of just a fun horror story, just like just like like a slasher film from the 80s, it hit the marks it needed to hit, and I really enjoyed it.
Like Chopping Mall. That was a. I think that
No,
was a big.
it's not as jokey as that. It's not as jokey as that.
Okay.
If there is a spiritual cousin to this, I would say Phantasm. Um,
Okay.
yeah, just in
Yeah.
terms of uh, why are you doing this? You know, why are you putting yourself into this situation? But the backstory behind the person that's terrorizing you uh, provides volumes of interest. So um,
Cool.
I'm really interested to see where this goes, and I would also like to hear your Dead Mall story at some point, Steve.
So yeah, I mean, I'm
Not now,
totally
but
in.
another
I'm
time.
totally in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but I think you would enjoy it. The art it's like I said, it's crude at points.
Hmm.
Great monsters, as you can see from the cover, and one thing that they encounter. But there is some inconsistent art, but I don't think it's jarring to the point that it takes you out of the story. So,
Okay.
yep,
Well, that's good. Yeah, I'm in. I'll read that. That sounds good to me.
yeah, and it's fun. I mean, it's fun. It was like one of these things where you were just, and also definitely teen voices and definitely
Hmm.
scary. So
Good.
it hit the marks it needed to hit, and I think I'm in for all four.
I've just been really happy with all the horror comics that have been put out through Dark Horse and Vault, and they've just been really putting out some really good stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and it's
cool.
interesting because like the horror that's out there now is, if I can use this term, decidedly non-vertigo. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it doesn't seem to share those kind of share um, that kind of vibe. They all seem
Cerebral
to be,
and
yeah, they all seem to be trying to do something different, maybe a little more bass, but
Mhm.
definitely original voices. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Caleb, my team's gonna lose. I apologize if I was going off at points, but I needed to keep track of this. But one
They couldn't have done that shit
final,
last week.
it's final. But we did lose in the final, 27-17. But Christian Watson, 5 Lambo leaps in 5 days. Amazing, 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 amazing. So.
He says that because his team beat my team last week.
Yeah, but I was not expecting that.
No one was.
I was
No one
not
was.
expecting that. Yeah, I was not expecting
They had lost 5 in a row, and
Yeah.
they decided to not do that on the week that I needed them to.
And this loss probably means our season's over. I think it's
Yeah.
mathematically impossible unless, all 3 teams in our division, just blow the pooch, But yeah, that's just the way it is. But that's how much I love you guys. That I would not watch a Packers game and share time with you. I hope you enjoy that.
That is the best
means
gift I
something
could
to
have
you.
gotten. That's like that's just some gift of the Magi shit right there.
It's gold, frankincense, and myrrh all in one. Myrrh. What the hell is myrrh? Do I need myrrh? Do I even want myrrh?
But it's a gift.
It's a gift.
Maybe we'll re-gift.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll re-gift the frankincense. It's got a funny name.
Frankincense is good. It's good. It smells good.
All right, we're going to start wrapping this episode up. And when we wrap an episode of the Comic Book Bears up, we do so with a segment we call the Woofs of the Week. In the bear community, if you find a fellow attractive, you woof at him. We do something similar where we put a spotlight on something which may be a comic book, but it also may be a film or a TV program or a charitable initiative, anything under the sun that we think you, fair listener, or in this case, viewer, may be interested in sampling. I'll start as I always do with Steve. Steve, what is your woof of the week?
Well, my woof of the week is kind of odd. It is TV related, as is almost all the ones that I have. But this one is kind of like if you're really digging for something obscure-ish, especially on this side of the Atlantic. My woof is Dark Season, which was a 1991 TV series that was geared towards kids. It was a sci-fi, sort of like sci-fi horror series written by none other than Russell T. Davies. It was his first TV writing gig. Russell T. Davies, who has just retaken over the writing of Doctor Who, so for the newer seasons that are coming up. This show is very strange. It's basically it's only 6 episodes. There's not a lot to it. It basically centers around these 3 comprehensive school kids who get themselves wrapped up in, some massive techno conspiracy, sci-fi-ish kind of thing with a company that's trying to rule the world and take over the brains of the UK and all of that through computers, which were pretty big in 1991. Most people didn't have them in their houses. It stars, a couple unknowns, and then also Kate Winslet in her first TV role. So it's interesting. It's got 2 big first names that have now 30 years later, are much bigger in their fields. But it's really fascinating, and it's something I had never heard of before last week when somebody brought it up and said, hey, we found these old tapes of Dark Season. You should check it out. And I did. It's very 1991. But I do recommend it. It's fascinating. It is very fascinating.
Streaming anywhere, or is this something that you...
Not that I know of. You might have to, do some searching for it. It was released on DVD, I think, back in 2000
when everything
6?
Was.
Yeah, when everything was being released on DVD. It really was only shown on TV back in 1991, again in 96, and then once more in 2002. So it's kind of obscure, but with Russell T. Davies coming back onto Doctor Who, I think a lot of his old stuff is now coming back up. And in fact, there are apparently, and I didn't really recognize it, but there's some connections. Some of the tricks and tropes and little things that he does with his characters in Dark Season, he then does again in his revival of Doctor Who in a couple episodes. He's like, oh yeah, I'll just take that same thing. It kind of worked there. Which now I have to go back and watch those episodes of Doctor Who where it's like, oh, he did. Oh, okay. But yeah, Dark Season, if you can find it. It's obscure.
Okay.
If you can find it, try to check it out.
All right, over to Caleb. Caleb, what is your wolf of the week?
Yeah, my wolf of the week goes out to a new comic, as they often do. It's a new book that is, and the reason it's my wolf of the week, it's drawn by a guy that I've gotten the pleasure to know. He's a great artist, but he's become a pretty good friend and somebody I have a lot of respect for, just because he's a good person over the last couple of years. And that is a book that we mentioned not too long ago, kind of blew up unexpectedly. The numbers and the pre-orders were big. It's Ninja Funk #1. It is out now, and it's drawn by Alex Regal, who again I've gotten to know. He did a great Gargoyles piece for me that I showed off not too long ago. Surprise! But he's a solid guy, and I've had the pleasure of becoming a buddy of his over the past couple years. This is written, or the story is created, I should say, by Steve Schuett and some JPG. They are the creators. Dennis Duna and Rob Cannon did the letters, and the actual music is by Music Funk. And when I say that, there are those little square code things throughout this book that you can hold your phone over, and it takes you to a YouTube video. So you actually get to hear music created for it, which is cool because this book is music driven. It is a sci-fi music driven battle book. 3 main characters: a skinny hip hop dude with a TV for a head, somebody who wears a futuristic cyborg techno wolf suit, and a cat who just goes around shouting "gang gang" and shits everywhere. So and they are battling some villain that is totally not Skrillex. So go check it out. It's out now. I enjoyed it. It's fun. It's weird. It is really it's a strange little tale, but I really did enjoy it. So Ninja Funk #1, go grab it, and Ninja Funk #2 is set to come out. See, they even have a little preview for it right there. So get it.
Okay. If you notice, I kind of did a sigh of relief when you said it was a comic that was your wolf of the week, because I was almost certain you were gonna have my wolf of the week, and this is one of the reasons why we should clear this with each other before we do. But you didn't, so I still got my wolf of the week, and my wolf of the week goes out to a new podcast, which is overseen by the hosts are our friend Brian Newberry and Hassan, and Brian C is with them, and it is Comics Discourse 114. I think they've had 2 episodes released
Uh-huh.
so far. I know they have a bunch in the bag, but they've released 2 episodes so far. So welcome, guys, to this particular world, and looking forward to what's ahead there. So.
Awesome.
I thought for sure Caleb was gonna do this, and I was like, "Oh god dang!"
I almost did, and I probably yeah, I probably should have. I'm gonna hear about this later. But no, but I'm glad you did. I've listened to both episodes so far. Really great conversation show. So shout out to them. They're doing love those guys.
Okay, well, we're wrapping this one up now. Again, we are the Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on the Twitter and the Tumblr and the Instagram as Comic Book Bears. You can find us on the Facebook as Comic Book Bears Podcast. If you want to listen to us, please do so by downloading us through Apple Podcasts, listen to us through Stitcher Radio, or many of the other podcatching platforms. And if you want to write to us, please do so by sending an email to comicbookbears@gmail.com. If you are watching us through our YouTube channel, please subscribe and leave a positive review if you have enjoyed what you've seen and heard. And we will be back with you after the holidays. Hope everyone in the States has a very good Thanksgiving. Gobble gobble, as they used to say on the McLaughlin group.
Did you just have like a little call out to the McLaughlin group?
I just had a call out. I used to love the McLaughlin group. That was my first political awareness, really.
And isn't Judy Ruff from the PBS NewsHour is also retiring right now? So
but they also, in their last days, they had that hack Monica Crowley. So that was they were
hack.
Well, because Kondraki and Fred Barnes, had their own show after a point, and they really didn't fill it with quality people after that. So, I gotta say. So, but enough about that. Until next time, I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
If you're listening, you're going to hear a woof and an explosion. We'll be back real soon. Take care, everyone.
Woof.